I don't know how that got in the nominees, and I wish it didn't, because I would love the time I spent reading that back. There was like 3 spicy scenes in this, which was unexpected. I DNF'd it. A whole lot of book for a whole lot of nothing. This simmering romantic tension is founded off the fact that they kissed and dry humped 10 years ago, and that was it. Pretty forgettable for me. I hated it. Okay, he's a brooding rich prick. That's what else is there? Like, really? Am I supposed to be attracted to like a rich white man who's got a bad attitude? I don't know. This is getting a 1.5 star. So I gave this one 5 stars. I'm gonna give this 1 star. Can't believe it's over. It's really over. So hello and welcome to the start of my Goodreads Choice Awards video. If you're watching this, I assume you know what the Goodreads Choice Awards are. It's currently November 12th and the nominations come out on November 15th. And as you can see by the title of this video, I'm going to be reading, hopefully, every title in the romance category. If you're seeing this, that means I accomplished it or got close enough to where I felt confident in posting it. So that's good. This year they're starting with just 20 again, I believe. We'll find out. I've got a bunch of titles. I've gone through all of the arcs I've gotten this year, many lists of popular romance titles that have come out this year, and all of the 20 books that we see, and hopefully the 10 at the end, will be books that came out this year or books that have been republished this year and like re-released in some way, shape, or form. Maybe they were self-pub or indie pubbed before and now they're traditionally published. So sometimes we see titles that have technically come out earlier than 2022, but we might see pop up again this year because they got traditionally published or something of the sort. I've compiled a list. I've gone through and looked at all of these different sources and found titles that I think are most likely to be on this list. I'll say this. This is just my guess. I guess is a good way to phrase it. I don't know every single title that's been released, so I'm sure there's going to be some that come up on the awards that I'm like, I've never even heard of that. I never expected that to be on this list. What I did was I looked through all of these lists and my lists, my reading, and all of that, and then put how many ratings they've received so far on Goodreads, because typically how the Goodreads Choice Awards work is the most popular titles end up in that. And it's not even necessarily the most popular in the sense of the ratings or in the sense of how many reviews there are, but typically just how many people have shelved it in one way, shape, or form, because they're trying to do the most popular titles of the year, I guess. Sometimes we see random ones. Those typically came with the write-ins. Since we're not getting those this year, I don't know that we'll see those. All that to say, here's my list of the 20 titles that I think we'll see, with a couple extra honorable mentions that almost made it into my top 20. These are all based off of how many ratings they have on Goodreads, because I don't know that you can see how many have shelved. So these are all based off of how many ratings there are. And then I'll tell you what the average rating for them is as well, just to kind of give you that information prior to going into the awards. And I collected all this information today. So if you want to be scientific about it, this information can and will change before you see this video, but I collected this information today, so that's what we're going off of. And I also rounded a little bit. So the list I'm going to present to you is organized by ones that I think we are most likely to see to least likely, air quotes. The ones I'll mention first are the ones I'm most confident that we will see on this list. And then the ones towards the end, I'm like, oh, I don't know, maybe. So to start it off with 576,000 ratings, with a 3.51 average, we have Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. I'm certain we will see this on the Goodreads Choice Awards. With 576 ratings, who's to say how many people have that shelved and haven't read it yet? I think we're pretty certain to see that one. I also think we're pretty certain to see Book Lovers by Emily Henry. That one has 433,000 ratings at a 4.26 average. It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover has 215,000 ratings at a 4.13 average. Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score has 200,000 ratings at a 4.28 average. Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey has 165,000 ratings at a 4 average star rating. Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood has 123,000 ratings with a 4.03 average. The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams has 97,000 ratings with a 3.76 average. Twisted Hate by Anna Huang has 87,000 ratings with a 4.13 average. Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez has 62,000 ratings at a 4.4 average. Funny You Should Ask by Elisa Sussman has 50,000 ratings at a 3.75 average. Something Wilder by Christina Lauren has 47,000 reviews at a 3.72 average. Good Girl Complex by Elle Kennedy has 43,000 ratings with a 3.56 average. Dating Dr. Dill by Nisha Sharma has 32,000 ratings at a 3.7 average. Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake has 30,000 ratings at a 4.18 average. The Roughest Draft by Emily Wibberley and Austin Siegmund Broca, I'm remembering that one off the top of my head, so I apologize if that author name is wrong, has 28,000 ratings at a 3.66 average. Nora Goes Off Script by Annabelle Monaghan is how I'm assuming that author's last name is pronounced, has 27,000 ratings at a 4.22 average. Weather Girl by Rachel Lynn Solomon has 26.5 thousand ratings at a 3.69 average. One Night on the Island by Josie Silver has 25,000 ratings at a 3.77 average. By the Book by Jasmine Guillory has 18,000 ratings at a 3.76 average. And lastly, Wicked Beauty by Katie Robert has 18,000 ratings at a 4.04 average. Those are the 20 titles that I think we are most likely to see based on the list that mentioned these are the best romances of the year and then organized by their rating. We'll find out on Monday what we actually see. I do think there's going to be some that aren't even on my possibilities that come into play. Maybe some more, I don't want to say it like this, but like adult romance titles in the sense of like Nora Roberts, Susan Mallory, you know, just some authors that are more in the older generation of romance. And I will say, I do think this romance list will be heavily influenced by TikTok. BookTok has taken the world by storm over the past couple years, and very much so in the romance genre. We see more people reading romance, but we also see more people reading very specific romances, such as Colleen Hoover. We see that in a very heavy capacity, so I do not think these are the best romance books of the year. Actually, one of my favorite romance books that has come out this year will likely not be on this list just because not a lot of people have read it yet, or maybe not have shelved it yet, but it's A Very Merry Bromance by Lyssa Kay Adams. That has been one of my favorite books of the year. I really want to see that on this list, but I just don't think we will because it only came out about 2 weeks ago, and so there's not enough like inertia to get it moving in the book world on Goodreads in order to warrant it necessarily being on this list, but we'll see. We'll look at the 20, and then once that 20 comes out, I'll pick 10 that I actually think are going to end up in the final 10 and start with those. And then from there, we'll dwindle it down. Basically, I'm going to try and read the top 10 before the top 10 are announced because I don't really want to read something that doesn't come to fruition. So that's the start of this Goodreads choice video. Hopefully all goes well. I have to start on these graphics now. And I'm really excited, and I'm rewatching Kayla's video. I'm so excited to see Kayla. She either does mystery thriller or horror. And I love her videos because I will never read all those mystery thrillers in 1 month. I would get bored. Well, never say never, because me in 5 years might be reading those, but romance is the category I'm most inclined to read, and I've also hopefully read quite a few of the ones that get announced because I read a lot of romance. That's the end of this clip. I'll see you on Monday when these have been announced, and hopefully I don't get too much of spoiling. So I'll see you then. Happy Tuesday! The Goodreads Choice Awards are out. I just finished filming a vlog clip, so let me put this away. I'm halfway through this, so I'm hoping this is on the list. I have seen minor spoilers on Twitter, but not in the romance category. My good friend Rocky is nominated for Best YA Fiction for Ophelia After All, so I will be voting for that. Whoop whoop! And I haven't seen any of the romance categories, so I'm gonna look at that before I get spoiled. So I'm gonna put up a little screen recording of me sliding through them, and then I gotta go into work because I'm at work right now. I'm just sitting in my car and I'm gonna be late, but it's the Goodreads Choice Awards. Kayla's doing a live tonight for her channel members, which I am one of, and she's gonna go through all the categories, so I wanna see her reaction to everything, and I wanna be able to watch that in real time. And if I haven't seen them yet, I won't be able to watch. So anyways, we're gonna get into it. Oh my god, I'm so excited. Okay, also you will probably hear like cars and stuff. There's a lot of trucks that drive by here. So, okay, let me get to it. Okay, here we are. Also, I have a little thing. Oh, let me move over so like this is better. I have a little thing where I can listen to audiobooks, so that's what this is. So I apologize for that. It'll just be in all of these clips. So here we go. So we have this round closes in basically 13 days. So I'll have 13 days to read these. So we're gonna see 20 today, and then it'll go down to 10. So ideally, I really would like to try and like within this round read the top 10. So let's go. Vote in the opening round. Okay, so it starts off with fiction. We don't need that one, we need romance. I'm so nervous, I'm not even looking. Oh no, okay, no, okay. The American Roommate Experiment, Spanish Love Deception number 2. I haven't read Spanish Love Deception, but the second one is on here. Ooh, that'll probably make it too. Things We Never Got Over, which I think I expected. Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. I think I saw this. I think this was a book talk title. And I remember someone didn't like it that I followed. Twisted Hate. I expected that one. Shit, that means I gotta read the first 2. I have a lot of library helps to place today. Reminders of Him. We knew that would be there. Electric Idol. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Terms and Conditions. No. That's like the second or third of that series. The Wedding Crasher by Mia Sosa? Delilah Green Doesn't Care? Hook, Line, and Sinker? Thank you for listening. I've never heard of that. Oh my god. Okay, it starts with S. Funny You Should Ask. I think Funny You Should Ask was in my list. It should have been if it wasn't. Love on the Brain. The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. I forgot about that. Okay, but I don't know that that'll make it. So maybe I don't have to worry about that one yet. You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty is romance? The publisher sent me like an email, like a PR email about that one, and I got the ebook of it, but I didn't think it was romance. Okay. Book Lovers by Emily Henry, Dating Dr. Dill, and The Kiss Curse. I hated the eggs. Oh no. Okay. There's the choices. We'll talk more later about these. We'll go through my statistics of how many I got right and how many I didn't and all of that, and then I'll make a game plan for what I'm gonna read as like what I'm thinking is gonna be the top 10, but I gotta figure this out. I'm genuinely, I'm taken aback. I'm like looking down at this list and I'm like, okay, I got about like half of them right. Ah! Okay, so it's the next day. And I've had time to sit on the Goodreads Choice Awards. I had to finish a book before I even like considered this list. And yesterday was Taylor Swift ticket buying day, so that was stressful. I got tickets though, so we're good. And there was just a lot happening yesterday that I didn't really feel the need to revisit those, but I did revisit them today, and let's talk about it. So I guess we'll start this off by revisiting my list of original predictions. So here they are, and these are the ones I was right about. So I was right about 11, which is pretty good, more than half, so I'll take it. Now we have the full list of 20 nominees. So what's gonna happen now is people are gonna vote for, I think it's like 2 or 3 weeks. People are gonna vote, and then we'll get down to a top 10. So my goal is to read the top 10, hopefully, just from the jump. I know I'm gonna end up reading more than 10 throughout this list, but I'm hoping that I don't have to read all 20. I know I won't have to read all 20. So that's good, but my goal is to try and read the top 10 to make it easier on myself. So when looking at the list of nominees, here they are, you know, arranged in pretty rainbow order as my graphic design heart desires. But if we're getting into statistical data, here's how many reviews each of the books have. So we're starting with the most, with Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover, has 581.6 thousand at the time of me filming this. And the one with the least amount of ratings is going to be Thank You for Listening by Julia Whalen with 15.9 thousand. And 15.9 thousand readers is no small feat. When you get into some of the nonfiction categories, I like know poetry, one of them had like 600 ratings or less than 1,000. So 15.9 thousand is no small feat. So now that we have our finalized list, these are the ones I've read. So I've read Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood, Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey, Book Lovers by Emily Henry, Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez, Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake, and Electric Idol by Katie Robert. And I wasn't too far off on my Wicked Beauty guess. It just happened to be Electric Idol. I forgot they came out in the same year, but they're part of the same series, so pretty darn close. So that leaves 15 for me to read from that I have left. And like I said, my goal is to maybe not have to read all 15 of those, but obviously here's the ones that I haven't read. I've heard of quite a few of them. I just haven't read them. Some of them are later in the series, and I just like haven't even thought about picking up the series. And I've noticed these are a lot of book talk books, and I tend to avoid those, so that checks out. So now, seeing what we've seen, we have our list of nominees. We know what I've read. We know what I haven't read. We know which one's the highest and which one has the lowest readership. What now? Well, I'm going to try and narrow it down to 10, and my goal is to get through these 10, and hopefully these are the final 10. And then once I get through these 10, we'll start going through the others. So if I'm thinking about this logically, right, this is my guess for what we'll see in the final 10. So we've got Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood, Twisted Hate by Anna Huang, Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score, Book Lovers by Emily Henry, Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover, Terms and Conditions by Lauren Asher, It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover, Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake, Electric Idol by Katie Robert, and Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. These are my guesses. These are my guesses. Am I going to be right? Probably not. But am I hopeful that I'm right? Yes. So now that we've got that list of 10, I'm going to start reading what I have left to read and maybe pick up a random one here and there. I have checked out books from the library that aren't even on my final 10 guesses. So, you know, maybe this isn't starting off as great as I wanted to, but we're going to give it a shot. My goal is to get through maybe some of the early series books first and then pick up the occasional one that I'm like fairly confident in, and hopefully have the vast majority of the top 10 read. Let's be honest with myself. I think my goal is to have like 7 or 8 of the top 10 read by the time the top 10 are announced. And if we're looking at the list that I've created here, I've read 3, 4 of them. 5? I've read 5 of them. That would be great. So hopefully I'm right, and hopefully I've read 5 of the top 10 already. Do I think I'm going to be right? No. But now let's start the actual reading. Hi, good morning. It is Tuesday, November 22nd. I've been really bad about updating you, and I apologize. But the reason I haven't updated is because, like, in my mind, I was like, I have to film this clip before I film the update clips. And then I'm like, Shelby, you edit videos. Like, you can just put the clip before. Anyways, I realized that we haven't discussed the ones that I've already read prior to the Goodreads Choice Awards being like announced and things like that. So I figured we could go over the ones that I've already read. So let's get started. So starting off with Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. I read this back in March and I DNF'd it. And I think the primary reason I DNF'd it was, number one, it really felt like the Love Hypothesis, like the exact same. All of Ali Hazelwood's books thus far have kind of felt like the same thing. I got really tired of he's big, she's small, like the size thing, like just in terms of general height and things like that. But also Love on the Brain. So it follows our main character, B and Levi. B and Levi, I think, were like work partners at some point, and something weird happened between them, miscommunication trope, and then B gets a job for like NASA and ends up having to work with him again, if I remember correctly, and she's doing some like weird helmet thing. She's a neuroscientist, and this dealt so heavily with the brain stuff. It was just like me. I was exhausted reading it, and it wasn't my cup of tea, so I DNF'd that at 40%. I wrote a full Goodreads review, thank you Shelby of the pass. I said the chemistry was awkward, and yeah, apparently 99% of each chapter was neuroscience and 1% lackluster chemistry, and I found myself bored beyond comprehension. So that's how I felt about that book. So it's safe to say that I don't think I'll be rating that very high. I need you to know my workday has started, and I'm like sitting in my car, I'm like, Next up is Hook, Line, and Sinker. This is the second book following It Happened One Summer, I believe the title of it was. It's like the Bellinger sisters. And this follows 2 side characters that we met in the first book, Hannah and Fox. Hannah is the main character from the previous books, who I can't remember the name of, sister. She works in LA. She is like a producer. She does something with like music, and she loves music and loves movie scores and things like that. And she's working on a project, and she remembers the town that her and her sister went to, I think, the previous summer. And she's like, I have a great location for this project, this indie film project we're working on. Like, this is gonna be a great location. She gets a job there, but she also remembers Fox, who she had like mild flirtations with when she was there previously. Fox was kind of like a playboy. He was kind of like a womanizer, and that's kind of how he's known in the town. And it's about Fox and Hannah, and they end up staying together, and while she's working on this project, and it's like, does she like want to even try and consider anything when she's pining for this new job that would like be successful for her but also like keep her in LA, or does she want to stay here in this town that she's come to love, and like, does she have feelings for Fox, blah 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 blah. I gave it 3 stars. I liked the first one a lot more, but this one, it was just like, it was overly sexual at times. Like, there was a little too much of it, and not in like a hot way, but in like an annoying way. And I didn't think the characters had that much chemistry. It felt a little forced. The dialogue felt a little weird, and it just like wasn't my cup of tea, which means we're not starting off well for the few books that I've read. I gave it 3 stars, so like, it wasn't the worst thing I've ever read, but it wasn't the best. And I'll link all my Goodreads reviews below if you want to know my thoughts, because I read a lot of these a while ago, earlier this year. So if you care to know what I thought of them, there's also that. Let's get into one that I really loved, and that's Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I rated this 5 stars. So this follows our main character, Nora. She's a literary agent, and she works with this one client who I can't remember the name of, because this is another one I read forever ago. But she's trying to get this client a book deal, and this client was really successful with one of her books, and it took place in Sunshine Falls. She's trying to get this editor to take on the project. His name is Charlie, and he's kind of like brooding, grumpy guy. Grumpy sunshine, woo! She's just like feeling like in a bit of a rut. She's a workaholic, and her sister Libby is like, hey, let's go to Sunshine Falls, where your client, has all these books based. And so Libby and Nora take a little sisters trip to Sunshine Falls to help Nora with her work and kind of get her groove back and inspire her, and also like just take a break a bit, like, realize that you don't have to constantly be working all the time, and like there's more to life than just work. Libby has her own motivations for bringing Nora there, but while Nora is there in this little tiny small town that I think has like 1 hotel, and you gotta like walk up this giant mountain to get there, she bumps into Charlie. Why is Charlie in Sunshine Falls? I don't know. But I really liked it. I rated it 5 stars, and I remember really liking it because this book is not your typical run-of-the-mill contemporary romance. I have to sneeze. It's not your typical run-of-the-mill contemporary romance. It deals with really hard-hitting topics, which I think is something Emily Henry does really successfully. It's just got a lot of weight to it in beyond just the romance that you have at hand. So I really loved this one. Like I said, I gave it 5 stars. And I have read Happy Place by Emily Henry now, and I did like Happy Place just a smidge more, but this is my second favorite Emily Henry overall. Next up, Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. This follows our main character, Alexis. She is a doctor for this renowned hospital. Her family actually like took part in creating the hospital. So she's like well known within her little medical world. I want to say she was a surgeon, but I'm not certain on that. And Alexis is driving home one day and ends up stranded in this small town. A guy pulls over and he helps tow her car and get her back to safety, and then they run into each other at a bar in this small town before she goes home. Sparks ignite is a cute little way to say it. So the guy's name is Daniel. He lives in this small town, but Alexis works for this ER place that's like super far away. They, try and visit one another. She comes to visit him in this small town. She's kind of fallen in love with the small town, little small town vibes. She's really enjoying it. Then it's a question of her life at home versus her life with Daniel. And she's also got some other things she's got going on in her home life, and I really liked this book too. This was my first Abby Jimenez, and it sparked me to read more. I rated this book 4.5 stars. The only reason it got deducted a half stars was because Alexis somehow has a PhD. She is a well-renowned doctor, and yet she can't do basic life things for herself because she grew up rich, and so a man has to help her do them. She can't cook, she can't do laundry, she can't do this, she can't do that. I'm like, girl, you got a PhD. What do you mean to tell me you can't do laundry? You can't look up a little YouTube video on how to do laundry? Even if you never got taught how to do it growing up. You're an adult. You're on your own, kid. Let's figure this out. Then we have Delilah Green Doesn't Care. This follows our main character, Delilah Green, who is the stepsister to Astrid Parker. And Astrid is having a wedding, and Delilah's a photographer. So Delilah's gonna photograph Astrid's wedding, except they don't really get along. And then Astrid has a friend named Claire, and Delilah and Claire have like the hots for one another. And Claire has a daughter. Delilah is like just here in town to take the photos, and actually the town, her stepmom, and all of these things deal with a lot of trauma for her and issues that she has because of the way certain things happened growing up. That in turn causes a little bit of tension in their romance, but it's really about Delilah and Claire as both individuals, more so Delilah as an individual, but also Delilah and Claire together. And it was really cute. And I rated it 5 stars. Now, Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail is the second book in this series, and it's already come out by the time this has been released. I read it early because I had an advance copy. I hated it. But that's another story for another time. So I gave this one 5 stars. Do I have one more? I have one more! The last book, Electric Idol by Katie Robert. This is the second book in the Greek gods series, the Neon Gods one. This follows Psyche and Eros. Psyche is plus size, and Eros is like this brooding guy who goes around and kills people for, I think it's Athena? I don't remember who he works for, but basically it's Psyche and Eros, and it's a retelling, and it's smutty. If you're into like spicy books, this one's got a little more spice to it. However, I gave it 3 stars. Here's the thing. When you have a smutty book, you're either gonna get a really good plot and not enough smut, or a lot of smut and not enough plot. And I think this did really, really well with the plot, but then the smut also took away from the plot. The plot was interesting, and I wanted more of that, and it focused a little too heavily on the spice in some sense of the phrase. It's hard to explain, but like, neither one of them really came to the forefront and delivered what I really wanted them to. I will say the third book in this series, Wicked Beauty, delicious, loved it. This one just like felt more middle of the road. It left a lot to be desired in both the plot and the smutty aspects. So that's how I felt about that one. Now that we have that, here's my ranking of, I guess, the ones I've already read and how much I like them most to least. For now, I'm gonna keep reading. I have some reading updates, but I'll give those to you at another time because I am now 13 minutes late to work. I will keep reading and then update you when the time comes. Hello and happy Thanksgiving. I'm going to update you on what I've read of the Goodreads Choice books. So to start it off, I read It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover. This was the first one I read because I got lucky and I had to skip the line loan with my library. So I got to borrow the audiobook for like 5 days and I skipped the line. So because I got to skip the line, I've already read it and I gave it 2 stars. So this follows the events of It Ends With Us, which I have unfortunately already read. Which deals with our main character, Lily. She is in a relationship with a guy who I cannot remember the name of. Ryle. Basically, she grew up and knew this guy named... starts with an A. What is his name? Atlas. I wanted to say Axel. So Lily grew up knowing Atlas and was kind of her first love, but then things happened. He like moved away and she ended up meeting this guy Ryle and ended up in a relationship with him, and that follows the first book. So this is the second. It takes place after the events we find in the first book, and that first book deals a lot with physical abuse and trauma and things like that. It's not a book I recommend. This book follows the events of that and her getting over the abuse she faced and developing a relationship with Atlas after she bumped into him for like the first time in years. It was like super cringy. There were TikTok references. It was very much so a book that did not need to be written. It was written because of the success of It Ends With Us on TikTok. I fully believe that if It Ends With Us never took off on TikTok like it did, we would never see It Starts With Us. And I wish that it never happened because I wish that book never got popular, but I also wish we didn't have this sequel. There's the update on that. I've read quite a few things accidentally. I have 3 books more to talk to you about. Dating Dr. Dill by Nisha Sharma. This follows our main character, Karina, and then this is Preem. And Preem and Karina are both single. They're, I want to say, Indian. And within their culture, whatever it is, I don't exactly remember, it's very common for them to have matchmakers within their family, set up a relationship for them, and it's uncommon or maybe a little bit frowned upon for them to be single later in life. And Karina, she lost her mom at like a younger age, like a few years ago. She currently lives in her house with her dad, her sister, and her grandma. And she finds out that after her sister, who is engaged, has this engagement party, her dad is going to retire and sell the house, and her grandma is moving back to India. She is at a loss because she's like, oh my god, this is the house that I love. This is the house that my mom like made from the ground up, designed everything, and I want to continue my mom's legacy by continuing these designs and these plans that she had in this house that we love. The only way she can do that is she has a gift of sorts. In my mind, I thought of it as like a dowry. Whenever she gets married or engaged, she gets a sum of money from her parents that they set aside for them to kind of have a successful start to their marriage. So she's like, I have to get engaged. And Preem is a cardiovascular surgeon, but he also is a TV doctor, almost like Dr. Phil, but he talks about like the heart and things like that. And he fully believes that love does not constitute a stable relationship, and she's looking for a love match. He's like, I don't believe love can fulfill a relationship and make things exist forever because of things that happened with him. And her parents were so deeply in love that she was like, I have to have a love match. I can't go in the rest of my life not loving the person I'm with. Then it's about them. It's really good. I gave this 4.5 stars. I don't know why I took off a half star for that one, to be honest. I just think it was really, really good, and I really enjoyed it, but it wasn't like knock it out of the park for me, and that's what my 5 stars are, is it like blows me away, knocks it out of the park, whatever. That wasn't that. Then the last 2 books I have to talk about are actually, one of them is part of the Goodreads Choice Awards, one of them is not. The one that is not is The Spanish Love Deception. The one that is The American Roommate Experiment by Elena Armas. But I'm going to talk to you about Spanish Love Deception first, because that's kind of like the prequel or the first book in the series. I don't think you really need to read this one. It's kind of this situation of like, it follows a side character from this one after the events of this one, but you know they're going to end up together. So like, does it really matter? I don't know. So this follows Catalina. She is an engineer, and she works with a guy named Aaron, who she dislikes pretty strongly because of some things that happened when he first got hired there. And Catalina, one of her family members, and maybe her sister, I don't remember, is getting married in her home country of Spain. And she has told her whole family, yes, I have a boyfriend, and he's going to be there because her ex is going to be there with his new fiance, I think. And so she's like, I have to have a man there with me. And yet she doesn't have a man. And then Aaron's like, I'll do it. And so she's like, absolutely not. So basically, Aaron agrees to go with Catalina to her family member's wedding and do a fake dating thing. While they're there, they end up falling for one another. Blah, blah, blah. I gave this a generous 3 star. Didn't really have great chemistry. Wasn't amazing. It's a whole lot of book for a whole lot of nothing. And speaking of a whole lot of book for a whole lot of nothing, let's get into The American Roommate Experiment, which is the second book. This follows a side character, Rosie, and Catalina's cousin, Lucas. Catalina's cousin, Lucas, is coming to New York, and he's staying in Catalina's old apartment while Catalina and Aaron are on their honeymoon. Rosie has, like, her ceiling gives out in her apartment, and she has an extra key to Catalina's apartment, and she's like, I need to like stay in your apartment, whatever. But Catalina's not picking up, so she's just gonna stay there while she's on the honeymoon. And she opens the door and stays there, and then like Lucas shows up. And it's like, whoa, you don't have anywhere to stay, I don't have anywhere to stay. Should we stay here together kind of thing? Talk about a whole lot of book for a whole lot of nothing. This one had absolutely nothing going for it. I don't think they even kissed until I was like 12 hours, 13 hours into the audiobook. I listened to this one on audio, which is why I don't have the physical book. I literally listened, like, thank God I listened on 2.5 speed for these, because like if I listened at 1 times speed and I had been listening for 12 hours and they hadn't even kissed yet, I'd be pissed. It's just like they didn't have chemistry. There wasn't really much of a plot. It kind of followed the same structure and like layout and formatting as the Spanish Love Deception, but it was like worse because there wasn't like a trip to Spain that it was leading up to. It was just like nothing. I gave this 2 stars and I stand by that. So those are the books I have read thus far. I am currently reading Funny You Should Ask by Alyssa Sussman. This follows our main characters Cheney and Gabe. I think is how you say her name, Cheney and Gabe. She's like a blog columnist about celebrities. He's a celebrity. I'm not loving it. Cheney has like an ex that she's reunited with, and then Gabe has like an ex that he fell out with, and she interviewed him like a few years back, and then they're reuniting for another interview. I'm sure sparks are gonna fly. I'm listening to this one on audio pretty much too. It's not great. I'm not loving it. And another one that I'm not loving is The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. This is the first book, so I can read Terms and Conditions, which is the one that's on the Goodreads Choice Awards. So The Fine Print follows our main characters Rowan and Zara, and Rowan's grandfather just passed away, and in order to inherit things from his will, there's things he has to do, and he works for Dreamland. He's one of the executives for Dreamland, which if you can imagine like a Disney World knockoff, it's basically that. He has to come up with this great idea for Dreamland in order to get his part of the inheritance or something like that, and his brothers must also do the same thing. So he has to come up with this grand idea within the next 6 months in order to get this inheritance. So him and the creators, which are like the Imagineers of Disney, put out a call to all the employees and say, hey, if you have an idea for something we can do within the company, fill out this form and we'll hire you as a creator if we pick your project to do your project. Zara submits something in a little drunken stupor. She didn't mean to. She accidentally submitted it. So her ex had kind of stolen this idea from her, and so she basically like rips it to shreds and talks about why it's not good because he didn't fulfill the actual vision for it. And then they hire Zara on to be a creator, and sparks are gonna fly apparently. It's not like amazing. It's not bad. Like definitely the Spanish Love Deception and the American Roommate Experiment so far have been worse for me. I don't know. Nothing to write home about with this one yet. And like the play off of Disney is a little cheesy and a little weird to me. I haven't quite gotten on board with that yet, and him being like this brooding, it's like Grumpy Sunshine, so he's like this brooding executive for this big billionaire company, whatever. It's like, really? Like, I don't know. There's a reason I haven't read some of these book talk books yet, and it's because these are like my common feelings, like a whole lot of book for a whole lot of nothing, or like, okay, he's a brooding rich prick. That's what else is there? Like, really? Am I supposed to be attracted to like a rich white man who's got a bad attitude? I don't know. So those are the 2 books I'm reading right now, but that's my update. I'll keep you posted on this one and The Fine Print. I just finished a book and I wanted to update you. It is Friday, November 25th. It's Black Friday. And I just finished Funny You Should Ask by Alyssa Sussman. This is getting a 1.5 star. This follows our main character, Hani and Gabe. Hani is like a writer. She writes her blog posts and she would love to be a fiction writer, but she really got popular in the writing world based off an interview she did of Gabe. Gabe is a movie star who's going to be the next James Bond, and she does an interview of him, and it's like deeply personal. There's inklings of a romantic connection there, and everyone's like, we need to know what really happened. Like, you're saying nothing happened. What really happened? Because obviously something did, because there seems to be some romantic tension going on between y'all. Her column on him, or her tell-all on him, basically got popular because of what people assumed happened to them. This takes place on a dual timeline, so you have the past when all of that was going down when she was interviewing him originally, and the present day, which is 10 years later. They have both been divorced. There's supposedly some simmering romantic tension. However, this simmering romantic tension is founded off the fact that they kissed and dry humped 10 years ago, and that was it. Like, how boring. How boring. There was no tension. The blogging in this didn't work for me. I was not a fan. Ultimately, like, the timeline just didn't make sense, because at most of the time it was hard to keep track of like which timeline you were in, because it would say like then and now, but then you'd get like blog posts from the past in the now chapters, and it's like, hold on, you gotta keep this straight for me. And it just didn't really work. I didn't think the characters had chemistry. I thought it was cringy. I thought it was weird, and it just wasn't my cup of tea. I also don't like books about celebrities, so like the fact that it's just about this celebrity interview that she's doing, I was like, okay. So there's my opinion on that. I believe I said her name was like Cheney before. I don't know if it was in this vlog or my other one, because I'm filming so much I can't keep track. Chani, and then her last name is Horowitz. She's Jewish, so if that's like a representation you like in romance, she is Jewish. It doesn't mention it a bunch in here, but it does mention it. So we have a Jewish main character, and it's pronounced Hani. I think there's like a to it, but I can't do that, so I keep saying Hani. But yeah, so I apologize if I mispronounced that earlier. Listen to the audiobook and corrected my ways. So there's my thoughts on this book. I'm still reading The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. I'm a third of the way through that, and my next audiobook / physical book that I'm going to be starting since I finished this one is going to be The Wedding Crasher by Mia Sosa. I did not think this was going to be in my top 10. Like, I don't think it's going to be in the final 10. And we should get the announcement of the final 10 within the next like 3 to 4 days, I think. So that'll be interesting to see. It's due to the library soon, and people are waiting on the audiobook, so I figured I'd go ahead and read it just to at least have read it. So now that I have finished this one, I'm going to put a little update of my rankings over here. So this is kind of where this one fits in perspective of the ones I've read so far. I imagine it's higher than Love on the Brain, but lower than It Starts With Us. I think I liked It Starts With Us more than this. So if that tells you anything you need to know about how I feel about that book, there you go. I don't know how that got in the nominees, and I wish it didn't, because I would love the time I spent reading that back. So I have an update. I just finished The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. When I first started this book, I wasn't in love. It was like 2.5 stars. And then about the 50% point, I really started enjoying it, and I think I'm gonna give it 4 stars. This doesn't really matter for the Goodreads Choice Awards because its sequel, Terms and Conditions, is actually the one that's nominated. This one was really good, and I'm really excited to read the next one. So that's what I'm starting next, and I'm also reading The Wedding Crasher by Mia Sosa. So those are the 2 books I'm gonna start, and I'm hoping that I could finish them both this weekend. That would be fantastic. Do I think that's gonna happen? Probably not, but I'm gonna give it a shot. I don't know what Terms and Conditions is about. I imagine it's about Declan and maybe, is her name Iris in this book, The Fine Print. We'll see. Hi friends, I keep trying to give you new angles. It's just not working out well for me. That's the truth of the matter. So I have 2 books to update you on. The first is The Wedding Crasher by Mia Sosa. This is about Solange, who is assisting her cousin who is a wedding planner. And on the day of the wedding, she's running to get something, and she bumps into Dean's fiance, soon to be in a few minutes wife, and she's hooking up with somebody in the bridal party. So when we get to the wedding, Solange objects to the wedding and basically ruins everything and crashes it to save Dean from being with this cheater. Dean works at a law firm, so we see him a few weeks later, and he is telling his boss that he has a new long-term girlfriend, and he mentions Solange, the girl who crashed his wedding, and is basically saying, well, we've been friends forever, but now we're in this relationship, and like, she really showed me what I needed to see. In order to get this promotion, he volunteers himself and Solange to show these people around town to get them as like part of the law firm. A lot of details there. And Solange's mom also tells her family that she's got this boyfriend, so they end up doing double fake dating in a way, and then, you know, sparks fly. I devoured this in basically like one sitting. I devoured it like all last night, and I'm giving it 4 stars. It was really good. It was like 3 spicy scenes in this, which was unexpected, and I really enjoyed it. I read Every Summer After this morning. It's like the middle of the day. I finished this. I started this morning and I finished it this morning, and I just hit myself in the face with it. This is about our main character, Percy. She used to have this lake house. Think like To All the, or not To All the Boys I've Loved Before. This, The Summer I Turned Pretty. If you think about that, it's very similar to that. She lives on this lake house and her neighbors are these two boys named Sam and Charlie. Sam is about her age. Things start to grow between them as they're teenagers, and then when they move away to college, things change, and it's been a very long time. It's been like 6 to 10 years. I think the back says like 6 years, but I don't exactly know how long it is. Percy then returns to the lake house because Sam's mom has passed away and she's attending the funeral. This is the first time they've seen each other in a very long time since something really big happened. And so we get two perspectives that kind of end. The past perspective ends with the big thing that caused this dramatic shift. So you're kind of anticipating that the whole time while seeing the residual effects that has on their present day relationship and how things have changed for them as they've gotten older. I do like the stories that progress, as in like they had a relationship when they were teenagers and then they have a relationship again when they're adults, because you get a lot of the nuances of their relationship and being a teenager and seeing how they've grown as individuals and characters as they've gotten older and grown into adulthood. However, I'm a little tired of this story, and this one didn't do anything stand out. If I tried to give you the synopsis of this in like a week, I would forget all that happened in it. It's just like very run-of-the-mill, pretty forgettable for me. I'm giving it 3 stars because it wasn't bad. Like I said, devoured it in one sitting, was easy to read, but will it leave a lasting impact? Probably not. I would really recommend this for you if you really liked People We Meet on Vacation. Every single time I was like reading it, I kept thinking about People We Meet on Vacation and the similar feelings it had with that. So if you really liked People We Meet on Vacation, maybe you'll like this. I liked People We Meet on Vacation a little bit more, but maybe had I read this one first, my feelings would be different. So those are the 2 books I've read in the past 24 hours. And this one's obviously ranked higher than this one. I don't know where they fall with everything else. I think I liked this one more than Terms and Conditions, but that's not even on this like graph because that's not part of the reading challenge. So here's my updated ranking. Both of these are on the Goodreads Choice Awards. So now I'm going to pick up some other books. I think I'm going to read Terms and Conditions and just hope that ends up in the finals. And I'm also gonna read either like Twisted Love or Twisted Games, like because it's the 3rd book is the one in there, so I need to like get the first 2 out of the way in case that 3rd one ends up in the top 10, because I only have like a week to read the top 10. But I'm moving along quite nicely. I don't know how many I've read, but I've read quite a bit. So it's now Tuesday, November 9th. I have read 1 book since we last talked, and that is Twisted Love by Anna Huang. I'm gonna give this 1 star. I hated this book. It is everything that it shouldn't be. First of all, you have a grumpy, brooding, rich millionaire male main character who tasked with like keeping watch of his brother's best friend's sister. So it's like, it does all the tropes. So you got Grumpy Sunshine, you got one bed, you got forbidden, you got best friend's brother, you've got, did I say Grumpy Sunshine? Probably. Forced proximity. It does everything, but it doesn't do any of them well. My official Goodreads review will say this book tried too hard to be everything it wasn't. Angsty, sexy, mysterious, action-packed in every romance trope in existence. I just really didn't like it. It follows our female main character Ava and our male main character Alex. Ava's brother goes out of town, asks Alex to keep watch of her. That's basically it. It wasn't good, and I can't say this next part too loud. Basically, our male main character is like Christian Grey in that really cringy scene from 50 Shades where he's like, I don't make love, I fuck. That's basically what our main character is, and he's just grumpy, brooding prick, and I'm over it, and it wasn't well written. So 1 star. Aside from that though, our top 10 have been announced, so it's time to check them out and give my thoughts. Just to revisit, this was my original prediction for what the top 10 are going to be. I don't know how accurate these are going to be, so let's check in with Goodreads and see. Okay, romance nominees, I see 4 straight off the bat. We have Terms and Conditions, which I am currently 20% of the way through. It Starts With Us, which I have finished. Things We Never Got Over, which is like 600 pages and I haven't started yet. And Love on the Brain, which I DNF'd earlier this year. Okay, so we have Hook, Line, and Sinker. I've already read that, so that's good. Terms and Conditions, which we saw in the thumbnail, and It Starts With Us, which we saw in the thumbnail. So the first 3 are good. I'm already like started on terms and conditions. So far okay. Reminders of Him. I knew this was gonna end up in the top 10. I just knew it has the highest readership. This is gonna be our winner. It's not gonna be my winner, I can assure you of that. I don't like Colleen Hoover's writing. I have the ebook and the audiobook of this one, so I can logically get that done. Every Summer After, which I have finished. I think I gave this 3 stars, so that's good. Another one that I've read. Love on the Brain, which we saw in like the preview. I DNF'd it. It's at the bottom of my list. Delilah Green Doesn't Care. Did I expect that one? I don't remember. It's been a minute since I've looked at these predictions. I don't know if I expected this one to be here. I'm not surprised. It's a pretty popular one. And I'm thrilled that it is because I've already read it. There's Things We Never Got Over, which we saw in the thumbnail. I haven't read that yet, but I will. Twisted Hate by Anna Huang. I should have known. I should have known. I think I did know. I think I was just in denial. I'm a third of the way, if not half of the way through the second book. I know I could have just read the third one, but I wanted to read all 3 because I'm a masochist, I guess. And I don't like it. I don't like any of them. So I'm really annoyed that I have to read another. I was really hoping this wouldn't end up in the top 10 so that I wouldn't have to read this, but apparently I'm going to have to read this. Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I've already read it. I gave it 5 stars. I think this is in my top spot so far, at least of this list. Maybe overall, even in the top 20. I don't remember. It's been a minute since I've like worked on the graphics for them. And that's it. That's all 10. So here's our final top 10. Out of this 10, I have read 6. So I only have 4 left to finish. I'm part of the way through 1. And then I have 3 left. So Things We Never Got Over, Twisted Hate, and Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. I think that's achievable. It's Tuesday. If I finish Twisted Games today and maybe make some progress on terms and conditions, I really think I can finish this. I'm at Disneyland this weekend, so I really have to finish a lot of these by Thursday. I can read some on the plane on Thursday night and on the way home on Sunday, but who's to say? So this is gonna be an interesting remainder of the challenge. I don't know that anything is gonna bump Book Lovers, like just based off the looks of it and what I have left to read. I don't know that anything is gonna bump off Book Lovers, so it's interesting. Wish me luck. I've got a lot to read. I'm at McDonald's getting breakfast, but then I have a reading update for you. Hi, good morning. Good, how are you? One time they gave me apple pies instead of apple slices, and I was like, ma'am, it's 7:30 in the morning. I don't need 2 apple pies. So good morning. I have 2 books to update you on. They go together. Over the past couple days, I've been reading the Twisted series. So I have finished Twisted Games, which is the 2nd book in like the Twisted series. And then the 3rd that's actually on the Goodreads Choice Award is Twisted Hate. I don't like want to update while I'm driving. I was hoping the thing would take longer. I'll make this quick. So I'm sorry I'm not gonna be looking at you. I'm driving. Twisted Games is about Reese. Of all names, we picked Reese. And he is a bodyguard, and he's the bodyguard for Bridget, who's like this princess of some European country, but she doesn't really do any princess duties. She's living in the States with her friends. We did meet her in the 1st book, and she's living in the States. She doesn't have any like royal duties because her brother's like next in line for the throne or whatever. And so it's about her and this bodyguard. It was like, I think it was better than the 1st one, but like it wasn't good. Like I did not like this book. I don't remember what I rated it, and of course I have the note of like the rating on my phone, and I'm not gonna look at that right now, so I'll like put in whatever I rated it somewhere on the screen. So that's what I rated this one. And then we have Twisted Hate. So this follows the brother from the 1st book. His name is Josh. And then another friend from the 1st book, her name is Jules. And they like hate each other. And so I think it's supposed to be enemies to lovers, but they don't really hate each other. And this is another one that like I really hated. So like when they say it's called Twisted Hate, it's because I hate it. Like it sucked. I'm so happy for the people who like these, and maybe people would like these if they like more heavy smut in books. That's just not me. A lot of the time was cringing because of the smut, and that might be what brings some people enjoyment with these books, and that's like fine, but for me it made me uncomfortable, and it was cringy, and the like dirty talk was just not something that I enjoyed or like cared about, and it didn't work for me. And you know what, if it works for you, so happy for you. I wish it could have been me, because like, I hate that in this vlog I've had so many flops. I was editing a few nights ago and I was like, I didn't like a lot of these books, and maybe that's just because I as a reader have curated my romance taste and I typically know what I'm going to gravitate towards. Now I will say the fine print did take me by surprise, as did terms and conditions, but as a whole I think I've really curated my romance taste and that I know what I look for, and so those are the ones I've already picked up. Granted, Love on the Brain was a DNF, so maybe I'm lying to you. Maybe there was some success in some other titles that didn't even make the top 10. If I have time, I'll probably read The Bodyguard, because that sounds fun and I have it out from the library, but it's just like, I think I've just pinned down what I like in a romance so much that this isn't really doing anything for me, because I've read the titles that I wanted to read. I say that there were some really good ones though. Like, I really liked The Wedding Crasher by Mia Sosa, and there was another one that I gave 4.5 stars, I think, that I really liked. It's just, I don't know. Howdy friends, so I have an evening update for you. My hair is a mess today, I don't know what's up with that. I have read Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. I read this at work and finished it like on my drive home. This follows our main character Kenna, who has just gotten out of jail for accidental manslaughter. She was in the car driving and her boyfriend at the time and herself got in a wreck. She was driving, she had alcohol in her system, and then they got in a wreck and he passed away in the accident. And prior to this wreck happening, she got pregnant and then has the baby like while she's in jail or prison or something. So she hasn't met her child yet. And so this book takes place of her returning to the town that she lived in, and she wants to reconnect with her daughter, who is now 4 years old. She goes into this bar, she meets the guy who owns the bar named Rowan. Turns out Rowan was her boyfriend's best friend. And she kind of uses a fake name because she doesn't want anyone really knowing she's in this town yet, because it's a small town, they talk. She really wants to reconnect with her daughter and have that opportunity without like the town getting involved and sharing the news of her arrival before she's ready. A romantic connection buds between Rowan and Kenna amidst Kenna's need to meet her daughter. Her daughter is named Diem, as in Carpe Diem. And if there's one thing Colleen Hoover is going to do, it's gonna give us stupid character names and even worse plots. So I'm giving this 2.5 stars. Theodore Franklin, if you do not stop bumping your feeder and trying to get 2 morsels of food, I'm gonna lose my mind. Oh my god! At the end of the day, I found this plot to be pretty forgettable, in the sense that like, it's not gonna stick around with me for a long time. I just like didn't really feel any connection to the characters, which is fine. You don't always have to, but it just didn't work for me in that way. And additionally, the resolution to this was rather quick. And I've never said that I wanted like a Colleen Hoover book to be longer, and that's not necessarily what I'm saying here either, but it is that this resolution felt so quick, it felt really artificial. And of course it's a piece of fiction, it's not real. However, this just didn't work. It didn't make sense. Like, it tried to be like really deep and emotional and raw and, you know, heart-wrenching and all of these things, and in some ways it succeeded with that, because you're obviously dealing with some really heavy topics here. However, it also just like scratched the surface, and it just didn't really give the depth that I think these plot points really need. If you're gonna write something that's this emotionally driven and this heavy in terms of topics, you're gonna have the depth to back that up, I think, in a lot of ways, especially within your character development and the growth of the characters and the plot as a whole and the development of that. And this felt underdeveloped, forced, and you'd think that if you've got a mediocre plot, you're gonna have like a really solid romance to pair with that, to at least like make up for it. Like, sure, it's lacking in the plot, but the romance was great. The romance wasn't great in this either. So I'm ending this at a 2.5 star, and that's all I'll say on the matter. I pretty much solidified I'm over Colleen Hoover. It just doesn't work for me anymore, and that's okay. I just don't see how it works for anyone. Okay, hopefully I only have like one more update for you guys. I think I think I've pretty much finished everything. Here's my updated ranking. I'm gonna finish the rest of the books I have left, and then I'll get back with you and we'll solidify my vote. Do you like my sweatshirt? Be honest, be honest. You do. It's okay. You don't have to tell me. It's fine. Hi guys, I have an update. I went to Disneyland with my mom, and while we were standing in line, first of all, you should watch the vlog of that. But second of all, while we were standing in line, I finished reading Terms and Conditions by Lauren Asher. And let me just say, I was apprehensive with that first one, and I was more apprehensive going into this one, but my God, this was good. And I can't wait to tell you about it. On one condition, you have to ignore my, you know what, let me take this off. Let me take this off. This is when I put the sexy sax in. So now that we've gotten that taken care of, let me talk to you about this book. So now that we've gotten that taken care of, let me talk to you about this book. This follows our main characters, Declan and Iris. I would suggest reading this after you've read the fine print because you get some background on the plot of these three books in the fine print. So basically what's happened is these three brothers are part of the executives of Dreamland, as I talked to you about in the fine print little synopsis that I gave you. And when their grandfather passes away, who kind of led this Disneyland, Disney World like company, he passes away and leaves them their inheritance. However, there's conditions to these inheritance things. God, I have the worst time remembering characters' names. The guy in the first book has to come up with a good plan for something with the company and present it to the board and get board approval, or like approval based on these people who the grandfather appointed. It doesn't really matter. And then in this book, Declan has to get married and have a child before he can inherit his like CEO position and like get a ton of money. Iris is his assistant, and Iris sets up for him to have like almost like a buy a bride kind of thing, and they have this contractual obligation that like this is not a real marriage, we're not in love, we're not going to do these things, you can have a child through like in vitro fertilization, whatever, and that's how it's gonna go. Bride leaves him before the engagement announcement, and so because of this, Iris knows what's at stake, and Iris is like, I'll do it. And I loved this fake dating. I have grown to be very picky with my fake dating because I think it can be done really well, but most of the time it's not, because it's just not like realistic. I think there's some things in romance that are intentionally unrealistic. However, fake dating is done in such a way where it's like, especially when the guy suggests it, like we saw in the Spanish Love Deception, where he's like, well, I'll go to the wedding with you. I'm like, no guy is gonna volunteer to fake dates. That just like doesn't happen, especially with heterosexual men. Like, please, this just doesn't really happen. However, in this case, it makes sense that Iris would step up to the plate and do this and fulfill this contractual obligation, number one, because she knows how much of his inheritance is on the line, but it also makes sense that he'd go along with it because he wants this inheritance. So like, it makes sense and it works, and I think it was done well. The characters were great. I love that they had the foundational knowledge of him working for her. Obviously there's going to be some power dynamics at play. It's a workplace-ish thing. They're working on this big project for Dreamland Tokyo, which is basically like Disneyland Tokyo, and all of these things. So obviously you're gonna get some workplace stuff. If workplace romances are not your vibe, I would not suggest these books. However, if they are your vibe, you might like them. It does not like have the typical like stuffy sit at a desk vibe, but there are some like aspects of work that are mentioned in this. I loved this. I gave this one 5 stars. I have no complaints. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I was not expecting to like these because these are like book talk books, and the covers, like the discreet covers, like this one, don't look like romances, but then the original covers that do look like your traditional romances don't look like the kind of romances that I'm into reading. But I loved these. There was the right amount of spiciness and like sexual tension, right amount of romantic tension, right amount of character development. Theo's scratching his post right now. Tell him he's doing a good job. I loved this one. So there's your update on that. I'm so thrilled that I have that. However, when it comes to the grand scheme of my ratings and like all of the books I've read so far, it didn't knock Book Lovers out. It was really good and I really loved this, but I really appreciated the emotional depth that came with Book Lovers, and like just the way Emily Henry writes. She can write such beautifully hard things and like hard things that everyone goes through and challenges of life and existing and work and all of these things, and put it in a beautiful novel. Now, I will say, I think that Emily Henry is very like women's fiction or like literary fiction almost in a way, and maybe it's less of a romance, but looking at it in this category, we'll take it for what it is. It's still my top one. Here's my updated ratings, which I'm sure you're already seeing because Shelby editing is just fantastic. Thanks, Shelby editing. I just don't know that there's gonna be anything that's gonna knock book lovers out of its place. I just don't think that's gonna happen. I don't think I'm gonna read all 20. I'm just like, there's so little time, but I don't know. It's just, I don't foresee any of the books I have left knocking this out of the top spot. But it was really good, and I'm so glad I read it because I would not have if not for this challenge. Anyways, enough of me rambling about that. Let's get on to the next one. Hi friends, I'm here to conclude this Goodreads Choice Awards. It is after the awards are all over, and I'm ready to share my thoughts with you. To start wrapping this all up, I'll give you an update on my reading. I believe I had one book left to read in the Goodreads top 10 before completing the challenge, and that was Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. I have since read this, and I'm gonna give it 2.5 stars. A lot of what I read was a miss. Like, there were a few hits, but like, I've really curated my romance taste. I think I talked about this earlier, but like, I've pretty much hit the nail on the head of like what I'm gonna like in a romance. So this book follows our main character, Naomi. Naomi arrives to this town called Knockemout, where her sister has sent her like a desperate call for help. She has a twin sister. She is actually, Naomi is fleeing her wedding as she's going to rescue her sister. So it's kind of like a twofold situation. She's fleeing her wedding to go urgently help her sister. And when she gets there, she finds that her sister has like disappeared and has left her daughter behind. I think her daughter's name was Waylon. And in Knockemout, as she has now taken custody of Waylon, her niece, she meets Knox. And Knox is familiar with the small town. I think he grew up there. He's also familiar with Naomi's sister. Here's the tea. Naomi's sister is almost like her evil twin sister in the sense that she goes around town and like steals from people and does all these things, and they look identical. So when Naomi starts arriving in this town, everyone is like, you suck, you're the worst, what are you doing here, you're not allowed here. And it's like a mistaken identity almost, because she's like, no, I'm not my sister, I promise. And they're like, I don't believe you. She's like, I promise, that's my twin sister. I didn't know she was doing all these crazy things. Well, all that to say, a slight romance buds between Naomi and Knox. What I really want to say about this one is, why is it 600 pages? There was no need for this book to be this long. It was absurd. It did not need to be 600 pages. I sat through all of that. It was like very lackluster in terms of the romance. I didn't really feel any sense of chemistry between these main characters, and overall I was just bored. And it sucks because this is one of my good friend's favorite books. Sorry, Kendall, if you're watching, but like, this sucked. Why was it so long? I mean, I get like it's a popular book talk book, but I just don't know why. Here's the updated ranking. Mean it! Book lovers still did not get pushed out of the top spot. In fact, I think that like top chunk hasn't really shifted much. I think Terms and Conditions might have snuck its way in there. But when we think about all of that, like, are you kidding? Like, I could have voted book lovers before reading any of these. And I know that's part of the challenge, right? To see if anything new comes about that I quite enjoy. And I really did have a great time reading these books. I don't want it to be like, that sucked, I didn't find anything new that was like my absolute favorite, because I did get to read fine print and Terms and Conditions, and I did thoroughly enjoy those. So like, this was a success and I had fun doing it. That's the big thing, is like, I was having a blast working on this challenge. So to kind of like wrap this up, I do want to say thank you to Kayla for bringing me into this challenge, I guess, in a way. Her videos introduced me into this, and I've said for the longest time I wanted to try this, and I finally did. And her videos, you know, obviously motivated me to give it a shot. I don't know, I believe it was like her original idea. She's done like horror and thriller, so like, this is by no means an original idea, but I learned about it through Kayla. I don't know if it was Kayla's original idea or not. That's the only place I've seen it, and she's the only one I religiously watch. Sometimes I rewatch. I did vote for book lovers, and we can get into what won, and that was Book Lovers. And I thought it was going to be Reminders of Him because that had the highest readership, that had the most reviews. I think it beat Book Lovers by a good chunk. And Book Lovers won, which is shocking to me. Maybe people have read the other Emily Henrys and voted for that one because they really liked those, and maybe they haven't read that one. I'm just shocked that Colleen Hoover didn't win, because you'd think with such a high readership like that, that would obviously be your winner. Another thing that I kind of want to touch on is the fact that the top 10 that we saw was predominantly white authors. And we had like a sapphic book in there. I think Delilah Green made it in. It seemed as though a lot of the romance picks, the top 20 even, were white cishet authors. And that's not surprising. I do want to see more diversity within these in the future. And I think the Goodreads Choice Awards as a whole was really lacking diversity this year. Like, I would think as we progress through reading as like a community, as a group, in Goodreads as a company or a brand, they would prioritize diversity more, as, you know, society prioritizes diversity more. And I think that's a really good thing that society is doing. I love learning more about the world and people around me through books. I think it's a blast. Like, the books that I thought were the most diverse, I hate saying that because it feels like a token word, and that's not what it is in this situation, but the books that I really enjoyed that maybe I could recommend to you if you're looking for something that has a little bit more to it than a white cishet author doesn't, we'll go with it. The Wedding Crasher by Mia Sosa. Like I said in this video, I rated this 4.5 stars. This was fun. It does have a few spicy scenes. I think it was like 2 or 3. There was a raunchy sex party. It was a blast. And I believe the author is Portuguese. Mia Sosa often features Portuguese references and representation in her books. In addition, The Worst Best Man by this author also has Portuguese representation in it, so if that's something that catches your eye, I'd recommend that. It was great and I did enjoy it. And one that really took me by surprise was Dating Dr. Dill. This has Desi representation and it's such a fun book. I so thoroughly enjoyed this. He calls his dick Charlie, and when I heard that in reviews, I thought he was gonna say like, oh Charlie, blah 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 blah, blah, and like talk to it in a way. But he actually like refers to it as like my Charlie, I think. So funny. I thoroughly enjoyed that. Some people were like, I hated that. I thought it was hilarious. Once I finally figured out what he was talking about, I was like, oh my god, like what? I just thought it was hilarious, and I really enjoyed this book. I almost gave this one 5 stars. I just like I said, I think there was like something that just was holding me back from giving it the full 5 stars. It's right up there. It's one of my favorite books that I read throughout this challenge, and I wouldn't have maybe read it prior. So I did really enjoy this one. So if you're looking for some more representation and diversity throughout these choices, maybe you didn't pick this one or this one up, I would recommend them. They were fun and I enjoyed them both. So there's a few more recommendations in terms of diversity throughout the Goodreads Choice Awards. 17, here's all the ones I read. Oh, you're seeing a spoiler. I did read The Bodyguard. We'll talk about that in a second, because I read that after the Goodreads Choice concluded, but I did end up voting for Emily Henry's Book Lover. So that kind of concludes the challenge aspect of this. I did read The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. This features our main character, Hannah. She is the bodyguard for a movie star, Jack Stapleton. And it's fun because it's like a female bodyguard. That was quite enjoyable, a little different. And she goes to protect him and like guard him and his house and his life while he is visiting his mother, who's going through some medical issues. And I think he is the one who proposes a fake dating scheme to her. I don't think fake dating in this one worked for me because it's like, it feels really unrealistic to have a man, like, a straight white man recommend fake dating. It just doesn't feel realistic, but it was enjoyable. I think I gave it 3.5 stars. There was like some stuff that happened at the end that kind of felt like an additional plot point thrown in at the last minute to captivate readers at the end. And I thought it was an interesting idea, but misplaced. And I thought had it been maybe towards the middle of the book and a little more fleshed out, it would have been really captivating for me. But it being stuck at the end just didn't quite work for me and my reading taste and things like that. Some people love the things that happen. I can't say them because obviously they're spoilers because I said it happens at the end of the book and it like changes things a bit, but it was enjoyable and I did like this. It wasn't my favorite, clearly. It wouldn't have bumped Emily Henry's Book Lovers out of the way, so I was okay with reading it after. It also didn't even make it into the top 10, but I did add this on at the end since I had it out from the library. Obviously some of the books I chose to read were ebooks, but here's a small stack of the ones I read for visual and thumbnail purposes in a little bit. So these are the ones that I have the physical copies of. I did read more than this. Obviously, you saw all of the ones I read, but that concludes this video. I am so glad to have been able to sit down and spend the time doing this. I feel so grateful that I got to be able to do this and that I had the ability to read all of these books and that I had the ability to challenge my reading. Maybe I'll do a different genre next year to try something different. I cannot believe how many books I read in such a short period of time. I mean, this challenge really pushed me and I had the best time. So if you've made it this far, you've sat through like over an hour, and I'm so grateful for you taking the time to hang out with me and watch me ramble about books and maybe have some controversial opinions. I hope you found this video interesting and I hope maybe you got some recommendations. If you've read any of these titles that you saw in the Goodreads Choice Awards, even in the top 20, I'd love to know your thoughts on them in the comments below, especially if they differ from mine. I love hearing differing opinions on things. Just make sure you keep it respectful and kind, especially to other people in the comments. And if you read a book this year that was a romance book that released in 2020 that maybe didn't make it on this list, I would love to know, especially if you enjoyed it and you were like, I wish this made it on the list. That would be fun to maybe check out and see some more 2022 releases and check out the backlist once it becomes next year. I'm so grateful to be sitting here and wrapping this up. I can't believe I finished it. Like, I'm so impressed. To make my final statement, thank you again for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next one. Happy reading. Can't believe it's over. It's really over.